Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. I welcome you to the Wednesday, May 14th, 2014 Placer County Transportation Planning Agency meeting. We will begin our meeting with a flag salute led by Director Trevis. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Orr. Here. Pesh. Holmes.
Here.
Joyner. Here. Nesbitt. Here. Trevis.
Here.
Yukovich.
Here.
Mueller. Ewell.
Here.
Thank you. We have a quorum. I'll ask the board for approval of minutes of March 26, 2014. It's moved and seconded to approve the minutes of March 26, 2014. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Abstain.
3 abstentions?
Yes.
We're not here. Yeah.
You're here now, though.
I'm here now, but
Okay.
I'm not attending.
Agenda review. Is there anything? What?
If I might,
Oh, I'm sorry.
in regards to the recent state legislation, everything requires a roll call.
Okay.
Sorry.
Will the clerk please call the roll regarding the approval of the minutes?
Orr.
Abstain.
Pesh.
Yes.
Joyner. Abstain. Nesbitt. Trevis.
Yes.
Yukovich. Ewell.
Abstain.
Okay, thank you. Agenda review. Is there anything on the agenda that board members have that they would like to review before we move forward? Seeing none, we will move to public comment. Now is the time for anyone in the public that wishes to address the board on any item that's not on the agenda. Please come forward. What we're going to ask you to do is make your statement, and then when you're done speaking, put your name and address on the roster.
Okay.
Okay? Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Mary Jo Bittner. Do you need my address? Is that?
Well,
I
you can
just-
put it on the
there,
down
okay.
there, yeah.
I'm here to ask you again for a bus along Loxley Earhart as soon as possible. When I came last time, I was just aware of the needs from the food closet, but we've been talking to our neighbors, the Business Park Association, Pride, and then at the other end of Loxley Earhart, there, in one building at 12183 Loxley, we have Sierra Foothill AIDS Foundation, CORE, and Seniors First is moving in. So they all are groups that really need bus service for their clients. And as Rich Anderson pointed out, some of the people who work in the manufacturing kinds of things along that road could use a bus to get to work too. So I think there's a lot of agencies that really need the bus. And so we're working with the people on that road to try to give a consolidated message. And we really appreciate Will and Megan meeting with us. I think it was a good meeting, and I think we both tried to understand what the problems are from each side. So we really hope you will find a way to get a bus on that route very soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Morning.
Good morning. How are you? My name is Sandy Bassett, and I'm the president of the board of the Auburn Interfaith Food Closet. And I, too, am here to request bus service along Loxley Lane and Earhart. It is a major need in that area, and as Mary Jo said, we didn't realize how many more agencies are moving over to that area. And Loxley and Earhart are changing, and the bus transportation needs to change as well. And we need to have that sooner than later. And to give you an example of that, last Thursday there was a lady who came over from Auburn Greens who was a deaf lady who was walking along 49 and Loxley through Earhart. And it took her so long to get there. She got there after we were closed, but fortunately there was someone who was still there. But it actually is very dangerous for people to be walking from the Greens all the way up the hill across Loxley to our area. So one of the things that when we met with David Melko and Will Garner and Megan Sarin from the city, is they think they can work out maybe an alternate route where maybe the bus can come from the Greens and maybe come up Earhart, to Earhart, which would be invaluable. And so we really desperately need that. But to give you some idea of the numbers and the impact on the bus, in January we took a survey before we moved. This was at our old location. 48 people in the month of January took the bus to our address on Richardson Drive. In March, only 7 could ride on Dial-A-Ride because that's the only bus transportation over there. And in April, we took a survey of people who did come to our food closet, of how many came with someone else and who still would prefer to ride the bus and who would ride the bus if there was such a transportation. And there were 31 people who had still found their way to the food closet who would still ride the bus. So that's not the entire amount from January, but it's a considerable number. And another 7 did ride Dial-A-Ride. Dial-A-Ride is problematic because people have to wait a long time to get it. They have to call it a few days ahead of time. And then the return ride back, we had a lady who is a disabled lady who was left waiting on the curb out in front of our building for like 2-3 hours waiting for the Dial-A-Ride to show up. This is a disabled lady who entirely depends on bus transportation, cannot drive anywhere. And so this greatly affects her. And it's dangerous for her to be sitting out on the curb waiting for the Dial-A-Ride bus to show up. So the other issue that we have and we've heard about is people have told us that they're limited on how many bags that they can carry on the bus, that they can have only 1 bag or maybe 2 bags of groceries if they do ride the bus. And many of our families have as many as 3 to 6 bags of groceries. So some leeway needs to be given for those who are carrying groceries. And it's not just, the people from the Greens, it's the seniors that are affected, it's the homeless, it's all the low-income families that we really want them to be able to ride the bus and to be able to get around. So I would like to urge you to take action soon. And as I said, that area is changing, and the bus route needs to change too. Thank you.
Thank you. Please sign that. Good morning, Mr. Hill.
How are you? Eric Hill and I do the technology work at the food closet. So the county and the city have been less than supportive of this food closet move. I think this is an opportunity for our governments to step up and help this population that so drastically needs the help. Thank you.
Good morning, Tink.
Good morning. I'm Tink Miller, Executive Director at Placer Independent Resource Services, and I'm speaking for our agency this morning. As you know, we serve people with disabilities, 2/3 of whom are seniors. So we're very much in alignment with an understanding of the needs that are being discussed this morning. And I'm not going to reiterate what's already been said, but just add our voice that we agree with everything that's been said, and we certainly recognize the need. So we're willing to help participate in any kind of work to be done to help come up with a solution.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Don't forget this. Good morning, Ms. Galloway.
Good morning. Pamela Lee Galloway, and I'm with Volunteers of America, Northern California, and Northern Nevada. We own and manage several low-income senior apartment complexes throughout Placer County, and our seniors who either no longer drive because of illness or they can no longer afford a car, I would say about 50% of our residents here in Auburn do use the public transportation system. In addition to transportation being such a huge issue for us, stretching that Social Security dollar toward the end of the month also is a huge issue. So our seniors very much do depend on the Interfaith Food Closet and other food closets in the area. They haven't been able to access, for all the reasons that you've heard, the Interfaith Food Closet since the move. I'm here to support everything that the Interfaith Food Closet is trying to do. That bus system is absolutely essential, and for our residents to get out to that end of town is extremely difficult. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pamela. Please sign it. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak under public comment? Good morning.
My name is Martha Gannon. I just moved to Auburn.
Welcome.
And I live at Valley Oaks. I take the public transportation. I don't have a car or any way to get around. I haven't been to the food closet because I have no way to get there. So I think this would be very helpful for the whole community. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to address the board on any item under public comment? Seeing none, I'll just close public comment by saying that we are working, Supervisor Montgomery and I are both concerned about this issue. We are working with the City of Auburn and with our Will Garner from our Public Works Department to address this issue. It's very important to us, and I know it's very important to you. So thank you all for commenting and your participation.
Mr. Chair,
Oh, yes.
could I ask a question of staff, please?
Yeah, please.
If we're able to reroute that bus so that it does go by the Greens or down Earhart Loxley, how often would that run?
I think I would need to defer to Mr. Garner from Placer County Transit because he runs the bus service.
Morning, Mr. Chair. I think the answer to that question will probably be hourly. That's what the route runs now, and so we're looking to fold it into the existing route. But we're working on that still. So.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Will. Okay. We'll now move to our consent calendar. These items are expected to be routine and non-controversial. Is there anyone that has an issue or wants to take anything off the consent calendar at this time? It's been moved and second to approve the consent calendar. All those in, will the clerk please call the roll?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. We're now going to adjourn as the Placer County Transportation Planning Agency and convene as the Placer County Airport Land Use Commission. And we will conduct a public hearing from the City of Lincoln for the proposed general plan amendment consistency determination. Who's in charge here?
Good morning.
Oh, not me. Is that you?
Good morning.
Oh, good morning.
I'm your Airport Land Use Commission staff.
Good, yeah, that's right.
Good morning, members of the board. So we're asking you to conduct a public hearings in order to obtain input from the public regarding the proposed general plan amendment that Lincoln has, and we are looking for you to determine that the general plan amendment is consistent with the Placer County Airport Land Use Compatibility Plan. As you all recall, in February, we adopted an airport land use compatibility plan that contains, three airport land use compatibility plans, one for Auburn Municipal Airport, one for Blue Canyon Airport, and one for the Lincoln Regional Airport. And we adopted that in February, and as required by state law, jurisdictions with airports are required to update their general plans to bring them into consistency with the Airport Land Use Compatibility Plan. They have 180 days to do that. Jurisdictions that do that then undertake the majority of the staff review, the reviews that normally would occur at the Airport Land Use Commission. And so they take on that responsibility. Jurisdictions that do not bring their general plans into consistency with 180 days are then required to submit all of their projects to the Airport Land Use Commission for us to determine consistency of those projects with the Airport Land Use Compatibility Plan. So if you recall in February when you adopted the fee schedule showed a variety of project categories for minor and major projects as well as general plan amendments. So in this particular instance with the proposed general plan amendment for the City of Lincoln, assuming once we go through the public hearing process and the board makes a determination of consistency, all of the minor and major projects would be reviewed by the City of Lincoln planning staff for airport land use compatibility. Only general plan amendments, specific plans, rezones, changes to the building ordinance, those types of airport master plans would then need to come to the airport Land Use Commission for review because those are considered mandatory projects. The city had previously gone through this planning exercise back in 2007, I believe. The city's general plan was updated at that point in time, and it was submitted to the Airport Land Use Commission, and we determined, after a fair amount of review, what was needed to be done in order to make the general plan compatible with the 2000 Airport Land Use Compatibility Plan. So I note that because a lot of the heavy lift in terms of making sure that the Airport Land Use Compatibility Plan and the general plan are consistent was done several years ago. So now we have a new Airport Land Use Compatibility Plan, and there are tweaks with respect to what was done around the Lincoln Airport with respect to the compatibility zones and the zone classifications, noise criteria. And so those types of tweaks, if you would, for lack of a better planning term, those are the things that are the subject of this update and this general plan amendment that the city is requesting that we find consistent. This action is required to have a public hearing, and that's what we have today. And the public hearing was advertised according to our rules and state code, a minimum of 10 days prior to this meeting. Actually, it was published in the Lincoln Messenger about 14 days. I think it was published May 1st. And the city also was sent a copy, and they published it on their e-newsletter that goes out to many of their citizens. We posted it on our website, and we also have, as a result of the Airport Land Use Compatibility Plan process, a fairly large stakeholder database. And of course, we took those people that were interested in the Lincoln Airport Land Use Compatibility Plan, and we sent those stakeholders copies of this notice as well. So we've done a fairly a fair amount of notification with respect to this proposed general plan amendment. We've received no comments to date, and in terms of the general plan amendment, the board basically has responsibilities to determine that the general plan amendment is consistent with the Airport Land Use Compatibility Plan, is consistent with conditions, or determines that the general plan amendment is not consistent with the Airport Land Use Compatibility Plan. And in terms of that, there's a two-pronged test that is typically used under airport compatibility plans, and that is to look at whether there's any direct conflicts between the Airport Land Use Compatibility Plan and the general plan, or in this case, the general plan amendment, and that there is some sort of mechanism within the general plan that ensures that future land use development within the airport influence area will not conflict with the Airport Land Use Compatibility Plan. On this second part of this two-pronged test, as I noted, a lot of the heavy lifting was done several years ago, so those mechanisms were already incorporated within the plan, and so they're not really part of this general plan amendment. General plan amendment basically proposes changes to the land use diagram, and you have an exhibit that shows the compatibility zones. It's important for the compatibility zones to be shown on the general plan land use exhibit because that is what people will be looking for in terms of future development and what they can do. There are corresponding tables. There are proposed text changes within the land use element as well as the circulation element. And those text changes primarily are editorial, referring to the now 2014 Airport Land Use Compatibility Plan and referring to various tables within the plan that were cross-referenced years ago for the 2000 plan version. And with that, we would recommend that to the Airport Land Use Commission that the general plan amendment as proposed by the City of Lincoln is compatible with the Lincoln component of the airport land use compatibility plan. We presented this to our technical advisory committee, and they concurred with that. And with that, I'd be glad to take any questions, or you would open it up for public comment.
Are there any questions from directors regarding this issue from staff? Director Nesbitt, your light's on. Oh, okay. Oh, you got it. Okay. All righty, then this is a public hearing. I'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone from the public that wishes to address this item on our agenda? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing, bring it back to the board for action.
I'd like to move approval of the item.
All right. It's been moved and seconded to approve the item before us about the airport land use compatibility study with the general plan consistent with the City of Lincoln Airport. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Gore.
Yes.
Hesh. Yes. Holmes.
Yes.
Joyner.
Yes.
Nesbitt. Travis. Yes. Yukovich. Yule.
Yes.
All right, the item is passed. Thank you. Now we're going to adjourn as the Placer County Airport Land Use Commission. It was nice to see you all again. And we're going to convene as the Western... We're going to convene as the Western Placer Consolidated Transportation Services Agency, and we'll move to the consent calendar. Anyone have anything on the consent calendar they wish to have pulled off for discussion? If not, I'll entertain a motion. We've got a motion and a second to approve the consent calendar for the Western Placer Consolidated Transportation Services Agency. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Yes.
Hesh. Yes. Holmes.
Yes.
Joyner.
Yes.
Nesbitt. Travis. Yes. Yukovich. Yule.
Thank you. Now we'll adjourn as the Western Placer Consolidated Transportation Services Agency and convene as the Placer County Transportation Planning Agency. And we'll move to item I, final fiscal year 2014-15 overall work plan, program, and budget.
Yes, good morning, Chair Holmes, members of the board. This item is to approve our final work program and budget for next year. You saw a preliminary version of this back in February, and this version is not significantly different from that. There are some tweaks to update the information. But I think for those board members who are here who are alternates, you get a real flavor of some of the things that are in the work program by this board meeting, because you can see the wide range of issues that we deal with and programs that we administer and different agencies that we administer, not to mention the South Placer Regional Transportation Authority. In fact, about 61% of our budget are funded by grants and other activities as opposed to directly. So with this work program, we're doing all of those things. We also have a continued emphasis on our regional transportation funding strategy, trying to figure out how we're going to pay for some of the projects that you're going to be hearing about later on the agenda. And we're doing that, excuse me, all of that with our current staff level, which is 6.9 full-time equivalent employees, and as I always mention, our budget balances, and that's, I know, very important to the board. And it is a slight increase of the budget this year over last, mostly because of some direct costs for consultant services that are gearing up for the 65 widening and the 8065 interchange project. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from staff members? Yes. Director Yukovich.
Thank you. I had a question on page 42, work element 80, the Freeway Service Patrol.
Okay.
Let's get to it. Can you briefly, I understand on expenditures what the contractor's $239,000 is for, but can you explain the other three briefly, please?
Right. Are you talking about the cash flow reserve?
That and the PCTPA.
PCTPA is for the staff cost to administer the Freeway Service Patrol program, but the cash flow reserve for the state and the match is because the state does not provide the funding on the same schedule as our budget year is. And so we don't generally get the check for the year's Freeway Service Patrol, sometimes into March of the next year. So in order to preserve our cash flow, that's why we've essentially divided some of the funds between 1 year and the next so that we can continue to pay the contractor.
Okay, and then on the staff, the $50,000, that's to, it would,
That's to administer the program, to work with the CHP on that. There's to administer the contract, to deal with any conflicts or issues with the contractor, and so on.
okay, thank you.
Any other, Director Nesbitt? Your light is
I was turning on the light.
Oh, okay. All right, good. Any other questions from members? Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to address the board on this item? Seeing none, we'll bring it back for approval. It's been moved and seconded to approve the final fiscal year 2014-15 overall work program and budget. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Yes.
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 Thank you. We'll now move to item J, the I-80 Auxiliary Lanes Project Contract Award, page 76.
Good morning, Chair Holmes, members of the board. I'll be presenting this item. This is for the I-80 Interstate 80 Auxiliary Lanes, and as directed by the board, we released a request for proposals for the environmental phase of this work. And this project actually includes 2 auxiliary lanes, one on Interstate 80 eastbound between State Route 65 and Rockland Road, and one on Interstate 80 westbound between Douglas Boulevard and Riverside Avenue. The end project is going to give us federal and state environmental clearance and also Caltrans approval for the overall project. We received 9 consultant proposals, so we're actually very happy with the response we got on this project. We selected 3 of those proposals, and they were evaluated by City of Rockland, City of Roseville, and PCTPA staff. As an end result, Dock and Engineering was selected as the first place team based on their project understanding, environmental expertise, and also their proposed project management. And we're here today to request board authorization to negotiate and sign a contract with Dock and Engineering.
Thank you. Any questions, comments from board members? Director Nesbitt.
What's the approximate budget for this?
The approximate budget for this phase, this environmental phase, is $820,000, and those funds are actually coming from savings from the I-80 bottleneck project.
I see that you're talking about negotiations with them, so you don't have any idea what their proposal was?
We do have an idea. Their proposal is just north of $700,000.
Okay, so the negotiations are all within budget then?
Yes.
Thank you.
Good question. Anyone else have a question for staff regarding this item? Yeah.
Lane?
There's a story.
I knew there'd be a story.
When the project, the bottleneck project was designed, Caltrans had told us there was not enough room to put an auxiliary lane in there. And so we proceeded with the project. Well, as we've worked on the 8065 interchange project and done some additional work there, our consultant on that project, because Federal Highway Administration wanted us to look far outside what we thought the bounds of the 8065 interchange project, including this area, and looking at it with the consultant's eye, said, there's a way to do this within the existing right-of-way. So it is possible and perhaps likely we may have to move that sound wall as part of this project, but it can be done within existing right-of-way.
Okay, if maybe move the sound wall.
Right.
Okay,
but at the time that Caltrans had told us we would have to take out a row of houses, which really made it cost prohibitive as well as politically probably fairly volatile. So now we're finding that that may not be the case. There may be a way.
Okay, thank you.
May I just ask a quick question? Sure. So ultimately, when do we expect this to be completed?
That's always the challenge. We do have some savings from the bottleneck project, which is the federal earmark, and we have enough to get us through the preliminary, project analysis and environmental document, as well as design. We have some money for construction, but not enough to do both projects. We provided or submitted this to Caltrans as part of the Interregional Transportation Improvement Program, requesting they match our funds through that source. That was not approved in 2014, but we are planning to submit it for 2016 and are hopeful that because we have essentially an overmatch, we're asking for, we have $7 million towards these two projects. We're asking for $4 million. And we're hoping that that is persuasive, especially when we have a project that we believe will be shelf-ready.
And just to add, I guess, on timeline, once the environmental, we anticipate the environmental process will be done in 2016, and then we'll move into design in 2017. And if assuming funding comes together, it'd be open in 2019 would be the schedule.
Any other comments? Anyone in the audience have any comments regarding this item?
Move approve.
All righty. Got a motion to approve. Second, so we're going to vote on authorizing the executive director to negotiate and sign a consultant contract with Doken Engineering for services to complete the I-80 Auxiliary Lanes project approval and environmental document services. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Yes.
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 Thank you. We'll move to item K, I-80 and State Route 65 Transportation Improvement Sequencing Study on page 77.
I have this item also. PCTPA applied for and was awarded a Caltrans Transportation Planning Partnership Grant. I think to put this project in a little bit of context, if you think about the I-80 Bottleneck project or the Lincoln Bypass, those were huge projects with a lot of funding, and we had to phase those projects. And likely with these next set of regional transportation improvement projects, because of the high costs, we're going to have to phase those projects also. So this study is actually going to look at how those phases of these different projects should move forward. And we're going to be looking over the next 10 years what phases should move forward first in order to reduce congestion and also enhance safety. And so the project study area is going to include Interstate 80 from the Placer-Sacramento County line up to Sierra College Boulevard, and on State Route 65 from Interstate 80 to Ferrari Ranch Road. And the study participation, a whole lot of folks we're going to have in meetings include Federal Highway Administration, Caltrans, City of Lincoln, Town of Loomis, City of Rockland, City of Roseville, and the County of Placer. The final report will be approved by the PCTPA board. A request for proposals was mailed out in April to qualified firms, and proposals are actually due tomorrow. And we've actually selected a proposal evaluation committee, including staff from Sparta, PCTPA, and Caltrans, and we're requesting the board to give us authorization to negotiate and sign with the first place team.
Alrighty, Director Nesbitt.
Yes. Again, what was the amount of the grant?
The grant we received was $150,000, and we were required to match that with $50,000. So the total grant's $200,000.
And do you have any concept? You haven't got the proposals in, so you really don't have a concept. You feel that everything's going to be within that budget?
Well, we won't sign a contract that isn't, to be honest. And let me add, normally we would wait until after we had the proposals in hand to come to the board, but we'd like to hit the ground running on this. And because of the timing of the board meetings, the proposals are due tomorrow. We hope to have them going by the time of the next board meeting.
Great. Like, trust the due diligent to keep it in budget, right?
Well, and if you want to make a motion that says that authorizes me to negotiate and sign a contract within the budget set forth in the OWP, that's great.
Great.
Because that's what I'm going to do.
Okay, any other comments from directors? Anyone in the audience have any comments on this item? Then we'll move it back and bring it back for. Okay. Okay. It's been moved and seconded to approve item K, consistent with the wording from the executive director. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Yes.
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 Great. Thank you. We'll now move to item L, Make His Bike Month Declaration.
Yes, thank you. Good morning, Chair Holmes, members of the board. This morning, we're asking you to adopt a resolution to declare May 2014 as May is Bike Month for Placer County. And as you know, PCTPA works with the Sacramento Area Council governments on various efforts, including those that promote alternative transportation in the region. And one of these efforts is the annual May is Bike Month campaign, which was started about 10 years ago by SACOG and its outreach partners to highlight bicycling as an alternative transportation mode. And the May is Bike Month campaign is designed to encourage bicycling in the region and to elevate awareness about the positive effects that bicycling has on both traffic congestion as well as air quality. And the campaign is managed through an interactive website, mayisbikemonth.com, where applicants register and log their cycling miles throughout the month of May. And there are well over 100 cycling-related events throughout the month that happen as part of May's Bike Month each year, and participants can also take part in employer, team, and personal challenges to ride as many miles as they can. Now, last year, the 7,600 or so bicyclists throughout the region that participated in May's Bike Month logged almost 1.75 million miles, falling short of the 2 million mile regional goal, which is also the same goal we have for this year. Over 1,100 residents of Placer County contributed to that total, and I definitely want to make note of the fact that those from Auburn accounted for more miles ridden per capita than any city in the entire region. And from an air quality standpoint, it was estimated that the more than 600,000 miles ridden to work as part of May's Bike Month saved almost 500,000 pounds of global warming CO2 that otherwise could have been emitted into the air from driving commuters. This year, staff has been promoting May's Bike Month at various events throughout the county, and we'll be hosting a Bike to Work Day again this year at county offices here in Auburn tomorrow on May 15th. Again, staff is asking the board to support the positive benefits that this campaign has for the region and declare May 2014 as May's Bike Month for Placer County. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for staff regarding this item? Anyone in the audience wish to address the board on this item? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the board for approval. It's been moved in second to adopt a resolution number 14-20 declaring May 2014 as Placer County's May is Bike Month. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Yes.
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 All righty. Thank you. We'll now move to item M, State Route 65 Widening Project preliminary concepts on page 80.
We actually have a presentation for this item.
Right.
There it goes. Okay, we want to give the board a overview of the State Route 65 widening project. And I actually want to start with a regional context of South Placer County in terms of transportation improvements. If we think of some of our recent success, it includes the 6-mile Interstate 80 bottleneck project in Roseville that was completed in 2011. And we also have the 11.7-mile Lincoln Bypass on State Route 65 that was open to the traveling public in 2012. So we've been proactive in providing transportation improvements, but of course, Placer County is still a very desirable place to live, and we continue to be one of the fastest growing counties in California. So there's a need for additional transportation improvements. So I want to talk about the next set of regional transportation improvements, and that includes the Interstate 80 State Route 65 interchange and the State Route 65 widening project. These two projects together are estimated to cost $450 million. Today we want to talk about the State Route 65 widening project. As approved by the board earlier this year, we signed a consultant contract with Mark Thomas and Company, and Matt Brogan, the project manager, is actually here with me today, and we're going to be presenting this together. We're currently moving forward with the environmental phase of widening State Route 65 between Galleria Boulevard, Stanford Ranch Road, to Lincoln Boulevard, and so that's a 6-mile section of State Route 65. I want to talk a minute just about the need. I think anyone traveling on southbound State Route 65 in the morning or evening would tell you there's a need for this project. I think anyone probably driving over the overcrossing looking down at State Route 65 can tell you there's a need for this project. And this is actually a photo looking north from the Pleasant Grove Boulevard overcrossing. And as you can see, congestion routinely backs up to Blue Oaks Boulevard. And I think if it's raining or there's a traffic accident, things are even worse. And as you can see by the headlights in the distance here, traffic on southbound 65 backs up past Blue Oaks Boulevard. This is a photo looking south from the Pleasant Grove Boulevard overcrossing towards Galleria Boulevard, Stanford Ranch Road, and this is where all the congestion begins and where it is backing up towards Blue Oaks Boulevard. Northbound State Route 65, of course, we also have congestion in the evening, and this is a photo looking south from the Galleria Boulevard, Stanford Ranch Road interchange. And that, of course, backs up onto Interstate 80 in both the eastbound and westbound directions. So our State Route 65 widening project is going to need to accommodate all this traffic. And just to give you a point of reference here, currently on Interstate 80 eastbound, that traffic queue backs up from State Route 65 to Eureka Road. That's about a 1-mile queue. In 6 years, we anticipate that queue will back up 3 miles to Douglas Boulevard. So how are we going to find a solution for this? We have plenty of project partners. We have Caltrans, we have the City of Lincoln, City of Rockland, City of Roseville, and County of Placer, and we're all, of course, going to work together and provide input to come up with an alternative. We also have a consultant team led by Mark Thomas and Company, and Matt Brogan, the project manager, in a second here is going to walk through some of the preliminary project concepts and the project schedule. And they are the lead firm for the environmental document. Will also be helping us get approval through Caltrans. And with that, I'll turn it over to Matt.
Great. Thank you, Luke. Good morning, board and supervisors. So just a little bit about the consultant team. Mark Thomas and Company will serve as a lead consultant. We have a team of consultants helping us out between traffic and other civil engineering firms. The important thing to note about all of these team members have been actively working along the 65 corridor for a number of years. I personally have done interchanges at Pleasant Grove, Sunset, and are working on the Placer Parkway Whitney Ranch interchange currently at this time as well. So just an overview of where we've been. Caltrans completed a PSR PDS for the entire corridor. That was signed in 2013. We are currently...
PSR PDS.
Yes, please.
You got to say out the acronyms.
I'm sorry. Project Study Report, Project Development Study. That is the initial step for Caltrans in their overall approval process. Sorry, we kind of fall into acronym speak easily. But we are now moving into the project approval and environmental document stage. That is what the contract is currently for. That started in January. That'll provide us the overall project approval and environmental document approval to move into the next step, which would be the final plan specifications and estimates, final design for the corridor. So we're there in that middle step, in that middle bullet, and have been working actively on that since January of this year. Just the overall study area, Luke talked about this a little bit, but we begin at the southern end, basically at the terminus of the 8065 interchange improvements. Our project study area begins just north of Galleria Boulevard. If I can use the laser pointer there. We begin south at the Galleria Boulevard interchange, move all the way up the corridor. The northern limit is there at the Lincoln Boulevard interchange and the terminus of the improvements that went in with the Lincoln bypass. So we do encompass all of the interchanges along the corridor. This will affect the main line at Pleasant Grove, Blue Oaks. You see Sunset Boulevard. You see we have the Whitney Ranch, Placer Parkway interchange identified there. We're anticipating that improvement being in place as well, along with the 12 Bridges interchange. So the scope of our work is to review options to alleviate the mainline congestion, the design traffic year 2020 for construction, the ultimate design year of 2040. That's consistent with the other interchange work at 8065 Placer Parkway Whitney Ranch. So all of the traffic studies are in line with that. One of the main analysis and study points that we're looking at is HOV lanes versus mixed flow lanes and how that mainline improvement should all come about throughout the corridor. So just some of the preliminary goals we've discussed, and this was discussed at the kickoff meeting, and this encompassed all of the local agencies, Roseville, Rockland, Lincoln, PCTPA. Increased mobility was a main goal of the study. Alleviate congestion along Main Line. Along with that goes improved safety conditions along the corridor. Economic development, and that could come in the form of reduced delay along Main Line, but really keeping an eye on that economic development aspects of the project. Really, and then the goal is to have a shelf-ready project that is available for funding when it does come along. So what we've been working on since January is really trying to identify the preliminary concepts that we're carrying forward through the environmental document. Right now, we've identified 5 concepts. We're in the alternative screening mode of these concepts. We anticipate bringing 2 of these concepts plus the no-build through the environmental documentation. So we've listed here 5. The first is the mixed flow lane concept. So that would be mixed flow lanes along Main Line from the terminus of 8065 all the way into Lincoln Boulevard. And the second is the HOV lane concept. Really the physical aspects of mixed flow versus HOV, the amount of pavement we have out there will be the same, but the analysis through the traffic study will look at, the different aspects of obviously reduced number of vehicles in an HOV lane and how that would impact the corridor.
HOV.
I'm sorry, high occupancy vehicle.
Actually, I'm more wondering about the mixed flow lane concept.
Mixed flow would be what you would call a traditional all-use multi-purpose lane.
Okay.
The HOV high occupancy vehicle would be what's your standard 3-hour.
HOV I've had beaten into my head over the years. The mixed flow one.
Yeah, mixed flow and multi-use, we kind of use those interchangeably.
Everybody uses them.
Yeah. Concepts 1 and 2 from a physical standpoint are essentially the same, but again, we'll look at the different aspects of the traffic operations of that. The third one is what we're calling the hybrid concept, and what we're looking at with that is the high occupancy vehicle need is really more along the southern end of the corridor. We've identified, based on our preliminary numbers, those high occupancy vehicle volumes tend to drop off as we get north of Blue Oaks interchange. So we're carrying forward a concept to really maybe look at the high occupancy vehicle lanes through the Blue Oaks interchange, potentially include a multi-use mixed flow lane and drop the HOV, go with the multi-use mixed flow north to the project limit at Lincoln Boulevard. We anticipate carrying that through and studying that through the screening as well. We've included number 4, what we call a modified concept. As we get into our environmental documentation and start to take a look at the right-of-way needs, we want to have the ability to look at, well, what if we, to avoid a right-of-way take or avoid a sensitive biological impact possibly, what if we had a reduced number of lane sections there? That's not quite defined yet, but we wanted to make sure we had some flexibility in our traffic study to do that as well. And then number 5, of course, is the no-build concept, which we'll carry through the environmental. So we'll just step through some of the different segments, and what I want to stress is these sections that you see here, we're trying to look at a worst-case footprint with these typical cross-sections. These all include your standard 12-foot lane, 10-foot shoulder, and your standard Caltrans section. So obviously the first section from Galleria Boulevard to Pleasant Grove, this is the heaviest congestion that we see today, and the photos that Luke had shown up there really encompass these 2 areas. So what you see here on the section is we have inside widening, and we've called this proposed lane. Whether or not that proposed lane is a high occupancy vehicle lane or a multi-use mixed flow lane is what we'll carry through the study. But we have the inside widening within that existing median of 65, and then a proposed auxiliary lane on both the northbound and southbound directions. There is some overlap here on this segment between what is going on currently with the 8065 interchange and what we're going to study. There's aux lanes proposed with 8065 on the northbound direction. We anticipate the need for another multi-use mixed flow lane in that area, so that might push that aux lane that's being constructed with 8065 out. So that's why you see
And aux lane is
auxiliary lane. I will get to. Yeah. An auxiliary lane is defined as between successive interchanges, so it only goes that far. So if you think about between Pleasant Grove and Blue Oaks in the northbound direction, there's an existing auxiliary lane in that location. So that's how the definition of that would be. So just a couple more notes. So yeah, we do have the inside widening, and again, this is the heaviest congestion area and probably is the biggest footprint that we would look at with the improvements. The next section we look at from Pleasant Grove Boulevard interchange to Blue Oaks. Again, you'll see the consistent inside widening for either that HO, high occupancy vehicle or multi-use lane. You'll see here we do have that existing auxiliary lane in the northbound direction. So that exists today, and we anticipate potentially some restriping of that, but no need for additional pavement. And then there is an existing auxiliary lane in the southbound direction coming on from Blue Oaks as we get off on the Pleasant Grove. So this section looks to have that inside widening portion of it only. The next section from Blue Oaks Boulevard interchange to the Sunset Boulevard interchange, again, we have the inside widening. We are carrying a couple of alternatives forward here. One is with auxiliary lanes between those interchanges, and one would be without those auxiliary lanes between those interchanges. So we would pick up as we come on the loop, northbound from Blue Oaks, all the way up to the auxiliary lane. There's about a 1,600-foot auxiliary lane that was constructed with the Sunset Boulevard interchange. This would conform with that, so you would have a continuous auxiliary lane between Blue Oaks and Sunset. We would look to have that potentially in the southbound location as well, down through here. You'll see this is Pleasant Grove Creek. There's the existing bridge structures over Pleasant Grove Creek. There would potentially be some impacts to that with these auxiliary lanes. But again, we will study the with and without within this section as well. Excuse me, quickly, this would be a good example of what...
Excuse me, Director Yukovich has...
Oh, yes, sorry.
So the reason you have to do the auxiliary lanes is if the bridges aren't wide enough, you can't make it straight. Why don't you just make it a straight lane all the way through, not an auxiliary lane?
Well, the definition, again, back to that definition of auxiliary lane, is we would, by definition, if we have an exclusive lane from this loop all the way up to that interchange, that would be defined as an auxiliary lane, and that would be coupled with potentially an additional lane on the inside that we would construct.
But it only goes up to that's the point. It only goes up to the interchange. It
Correct.
doesn't go. So you lose a lane at one point there, and then you pick it up on the other side of the interchange.
Correct. And what the alternatives we would study would include an inside widening that would carry an inside lane all the way.
Okay.
I think I can add
the interchange.
You have the width on the bridge to add it.
Well, it's not a matter of whether there's width available or not. The auxiliary lanes really help us manage traffic that's entering the freeway and exiting the freeway without them entering the main line.
Part of it's a Caltrans requirement, too.
Well, it's more of traffic operations to make sure that it's functionally, and we have a place for people to enter and exit without entering the mainline traffic. And there's no real demand to carry that lane all the way through.
Okay, thank you.
So back to the hybrid alternative that we talked about, we potentially would look at carrying an HOV through the Blue Oaks interchange, maybe into this location here, and then that would transition into a multi-use mixed flow lane to continue north. That would be a kind of a third alternative we would look at through this section and then further north. The next section, really in the area of the Sunset Boulevard interchange. As I mentioned, there are existing, the auxiliary lanes exist for this interchange today. We would look at that proposed inside widening and utilize that existing auxiliary lane that was constructed with Sunset and carry that additional third lane through the inside widening through Sunset Boulevard interchange. The Sunset Boulevard to 12 Bridges section. One thing I want to point out here, so this location right in the middle is where we're currently looking at the Whitney Ranch interchange, Placer Parkway interchange. The Whitney Ranch interchange is set to go to construction this summer. So we've anticipated not only Whitney Ranch, but also the full Placer Parkway interchange to be constructed and in place by the time we get forward with the widening that's within our traffic study, so that it's a full interchange in place there. But this would carry, again, the inside widening through here, this location, all the way from the auxiliary lanes with Sunset to the 12 Bridges Drive interchange. And we would pick up and utilize, anticipate utilizing the auxiliary lanes to be constructed with Placer Parkway at this point within our traffic study. And then finally, the 12 Bridges Drive to Lincoln Boulevard. Again, by the time we get to this point along 65, the traffic volumes really, we're anticipating them to have dropped. So we would just look at this inside widening, be that HOV versus multi-use. One of the things we're going to need to look at as we get into the geometrics is how those lanes would drop as we get north of 12 Bridges. There is some intricacies as to how we would do that if it's HOV versus mixed flow. Caltrans has some different requirements for how those lanes would conform with the existing mixed-use lanes, multi-use lanes along the Lincoln bypass. So that kind of encompasses our traffic study limits. As far as where we are in schedule, we got going on the initial concepts of these back at the first part of the year, late January, early February. And we have kind of refined these looked at a number of different concepts, refined them down to 5 concepts. We will then whittle those 5 concepts down to likely 2 build alternatives and the no build alternative within the next couple of months. We're in the middle of our traffic operations analysis. We were able to utilize all the existing information from what was done with both 8065 and the Placer Parkway traffic model to really get the forecast years set to really hit the ground running. So we did save some time in the schedule with the ability to use that information. As we refine our concepts, we'll then get into our detailed geometrics, looking at actual lane widths, actual impacts to the environment. There's some sensitive biological species along the corridor. We'll get into our air quality analysis and our full traffic analysis. In our environmental clearance, we've started our initial field work, and we anticipate that to be completed by April of 2016. We do have 2 public meetings scheduled, one this summer, the summer 2014, and one in the summer of 2015, and just kind of where we are in the process. We've started our traffic operations analysis. We're just getting going on our geometric alternatives and our environmental clearance. So we're well along our way to meeting that clearance in April of 2016. And with that, I'll entertain any questions.
Any more comments from staff before I open it up for questions? Alrighty. Any board members have questions for staff or the presenter?
I had a question. The pictures that were shown of traffic congestion, was that caused by the 8065 getting on and off there, or is it caused by the traffic flows on 65?
Southbound State Route 65, I mean, it obviously is where the Pleasant Grove Boulevard on-ramp merges with the main line, and that section right there, you have 2 lanes. You have all the traffic getting on Pleasant Grove and the 2 lanes. That's really the cause of that bottleneck that backs up towards Blue Oaks Boulevard. And then northbound State Route 65, it's a combination of things. It really does go back to the 8065 interchange. First, you have the loop on-ramp from eastbound 80 to northbound State Route 65. Then you have the merge, is really the bottleneck from westbound 80, that connector with northbound 65. That's really where the congestion is occurring. And then as we go northbound State Route 65, the Galleria on-ramp is also a congestion point.
Right. And just to clarify, I think we're starting to see some additional congestion in the northern end too, Sunset Boulevard interchange. I know Caltrans recently turned on their rate metering signals, and so there's along the corridor we're starting to see an increase in congestion.
Director, you'll have
a comment. Thank you.
Yeah. You got it.
Right button.
Yeah.
The reference, or you referenced earlier in the report that the Whitney interchange will begin this summer, and I just wanted to point out that is phase 1, I guess, early phase. It's a right-off road into the much-needed Whitney Ranch area of Rockland, and I understand it's going to start construction next month. So I wanted to say thank you to the PCTPA and certainly Celia and her team for all the work. It's much needed for that area. So thank you.
Thank you. Did you have a question? Questions on this side? No? Is there any questions from anyone in the audience? Good. This is just a discussion item. It's not an action item, so I appreciate the update, and we'll move on. Thank you. Now it's time for item N, the Executive Director's Report.
Yes, I have actually a long list of items, which is a little unusual for me. I usually try and keep it succinct, but there's a lot of, and it's all good news. First, let me talk about some financials. First of all, I'm pleased to announce that we received a $15,000 grant from the Local Community Benefit Commission for our freeway service patrol, and I know Chair Holmes serves on that commission, and they only had something like $65,000 to spread around to a lot of worthy projects, and we received the largest amount of all of those. So I think that that's saying something about the benefit of the Freeway Service Patrol. Then I wanted to point out, it was on our consent calendar, an item about our actuarial study for our post-retirement benefits. I wanted to note in there that this is going, our long-term liability for post-retirement medical will be paid off in 2016. And we will have no unfunded liability. We'll be one of the few agencies in the state that can say that. So I wanted to underscore that a little bit because it's pretty notable. And then again, a third positive thing in terms of financials, we have been working on refinancing the bonds for the Nevada Station office building that we own, and that will be coming to your June agenda, the refinance of that. The initial estimates look like we'll be able to see a savings of 15% in our net present value, and as our I've been told that at 5% it becomes a no-brainer for refinancing, and we're at 15%. So we should see about a $30,000 improvement in our cash flow annually. So that's pretty exciting. And it does not increase the term of our bonds. So we have two bonds on the building. One will be paid off in 8 years, the other in 14 years. So it's not like refinancing your house and you're getting another 30-year mortgage. We're keeping the same term. So I'm very excited about that, and you'll be hearing more about it at our meeting in June. Some other things going on. Also exciting news on the Crispin Cider Works front. The board had authorized us to spend a little money to have Mark Thomas do a study on that, and we were able to attract a little over $1 million from Caltrans to make some improvements on the state right-of-way for that. And with the hard work of the city of Colfax and folks at the state, were able to convince the local business owners to contribute to that. So that project should be going to construction at the end of next fiscal year.
All right.
So that's pretty exciting that we were able to resolve that issue. And Director Ewell kind of stole the thunder on another one, which is the Whitney Ranch interchange. We've been working with the city to try and resolve some remaining issues. The Caltrans issues have all been resolved, and Jody Jones signed what is known as the Supplemental Project Study Report. There is still one outstanding item with the Army Corps of Engineers, and we were able to get some consultant help for free on that, and that is ongoing. We've been able to get the attention of some supervisors at Army Corps, and as far as we know, there are not actually any issues. It's just a matter of process in order to start the construction at the end of June. And we're also working with the city on putting together the groundbreaking event for that. So look for an invitation in the near future.
And thank you again.
Anytime. And then finally, we're also looking at a ribbon cutting on Phase 2A of the Lincoln Bypass. That is the additional 2-lane section that goes from Nelson Lane to 0.9 miles north of West Wise Road. That is nearing completion, and we are targeting a date of June 20th for that ribbon cutting. We won't be able to finalize that for a couple of weeks in terms of the construction, but also be looking for an invitation to that event as well. And that concludes my report.
Were you going to make a comment about the June 25th board meeting?
Oh,
Council?
yes,
Yeah.
yes. And that is another item. There is, we are told there is a ribbon cutting at the jail facility on June 25th at 9 a.m., which coincidentally is when our next board meeting is. And we wanted to poll the board to see if there was ability or interest to either delay that start time to allow board members to attend that groundbreaking. We also have the South Placer Regional Transportation Authority meeting that morning, so there's some juggling there. Or is there a preference to move the date either a week earlier? We could move it a week later, but there are actions that need to be taken before the end of the fiscal year on June 30th. So I open that up to the board's preference.
I would not be opposed to moving it forward or back a week. I will be gone the 25th anyway. I will be out of town. I wouldn't be opposed to moving it maybe forward a week so we're ahead of that fiscal year.
That makes it June 18th.
Any comment, Supervisor Euler? You're going to be at the ribbon cutting? No, they might not let you out, so. So we'll move it a week forward. Does that sound good?
We'll have to make sure that the chambers are available, and we'll also be polling the board members for the South Placer Regional Transportation Authority, and I know there's a number of board members that are on both to make sure that works as well.
Okay. No, I think moving it forward at the same time is more consistent with past practice.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. Well, we'll look at June 18th, and if that is not going to work out, if the chambers are unavailable or something like that, then we can look at the time change. Does that sound reasonable?
Fair enough. Great.
Okay. You'll be hearing more.
All righty. All the other items are informational items. Is there any board direction to staff besides what we just did? Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, did you?
Magnetic signs on the tow trucks when they're on I-80 as a freeway patrol, because there's no, as far as I know, I've seen them, they just have the tow company name on it. Nobody knows that they're really the freeway patrol. Now, maybe I'm wrong.
There is signage on them.
Okay, then maybe I'm seeing the other tow trucks.
And you know, I know we've got pictures of the signage on them.
Okay.
I can email that to you.
Okay, thanks.
All righty. Any other items for discussion before? Oh, Director Nesbitt.
Just real briefly, back to the bus service to the Loxley Earhart. We reached out to any of the other partners that we work with that have buses, Pride, or any of those that might be able to help with that, or are we just trying to do that within the
David is working on the negotiations
Yeah.
with the operators.
At this point, we've just worked with principally Placer County Transit because they're the transit operator that is closest to the area. We have not reached out to Pride specifically in terms of whether their buses will be available. I mean, I can bring that up with Will Garner. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
All righty. Any other questions? All right, then we will adjourn. Thank you very much.
Well done, Mr.